Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 10:56 Sunday night. We are live on the scene at Kansas Speedway. I'm here with my good friend Kaleb Vestal from Speedway Digest. Um, I think we just got to jump right into it. We saw the closest finish in the history of the NASCAR Cup Series today. Kyle Larson beat Chris Buescher to the line by 1/1000th of a second. That was the difference right there. I mean, we got out there just in time for that restart because there was a caution with about 5 laps to go. I I don't even know what to say. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I'm speechless. I was lucky enough to be at Texas for the Ryan C. Sam Mayer finish, and I thought that was as close as they can get. I mean, I I, I originally thought it was Busher, but at the same time, I didn't really know what happened. I mean, that was so close. Truly, we were talking before this. No other race is going to be able to top this. This is just a remarkable day. I'm very happy with the racing here. It's one of those days you're like, man, does it really have to be over?
Yeah, seriously, I'm gonna remember. I think I'm gonna remember this day the rest of my life. I took a video of the finish from our perspective. We were standing right on pit road. I'll play for you guys right now. So you said you thought Busher won too. I did too. The in that video, Larson kind of slides up the track a little bit. You can see it better on the overhead shot. But it looked like Busher just got a run. I thought they beat a little bit, and Busher got him to the line, and the scoring pylon even said that Busher won.
Right.
So no one knew what was going on. We jumped over the fence going to do media, and I was asking like three different people who won the race. I don't even know who won. So just a perfect storm. And you mentioned Texas. A lot of people have complained about some of the races this year. The short tracks still aren't good. Aero blocking still a thing. We heard about it at Dover. We've seen a finish of 1/1000th of a second, 2/1000ths of a second, 3/1000ths of a second this year, and we're not even to the Coke 600. So the good races are as good as NASCAR's ever been.
I tell you what, this got to be NASCAR's best season in a long time. I remember a couple of years ago when they said this is NASCAR's best season. What are we, like 10 races in now? 11, 12?
12.
Already we got Atlanta, we got the Texas Xfinity, and we got here. How are you going to top that? I'm so excited for the rest of the year. I'm excited to come back to Kansas. I'm excited to go other mile and halves. Why aren't we racing at Chicagoland? Why aren't we racing at Kentucky? I mean, there's so many. I love mile and a half right now. I think that's NASCAR's best track.
We are in the absolute golden age of mile and a half tracks with, the age of the pavement. They repaved this place in 2012, 12 years, just perfect age for a racetrack like this. I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, the race got delayed by over 3 hours because of rain. You wouldn't have guessed it. Guys were aggressive. That first stage was unbelievable. You saw 2-3 wide racing, 4 wide racing, even on restarts right from the jump. There was not a bad place to run on this track.
You saw guys racing like it was the last lap, like they're trying to beat the rain, and there was no threat of weather. I mean, this track. I remember I asked Denny Hamlin last year after he won. I said, "What makes Kansas so great? And is this something that the other mile and a halves can do to produce racing like this?" And he basically said it's all in the progressive banking. It's all how wide this track gets, running up top. It's truly something I don't really feel like another track can replicate. I mean, it's Kansas. I tell you what, man. If you would have told me 10 years ago that we would have saw the closest finish at Kansas, I would have been like, no way, no way. It'd either have to be at Daytona or Talladega. But this Kansas is probably NASCAR's best track, and I will say that. I know a lot of people are big fans of Homestead, big fan of a lot of other tracks. Kansas is the one to be right now.
Absolutely. You can't argue it. In my opinion, I've been to 4 of the 5 races, but every single time it's delivered. We talked so much about in the 550 era, just about how much dirty air was a factor. You couldn't pass, you couldn't run side by side, and now you can run as competitively as you ever could before. I don't even know what specifically it is about this next gen car and this type of track, but they hit an absolute home run with it. And if they get the tire and the horsepower situation figured out on the short tracks, you're talking about something special. Because I know people don't like the fuel saving on super speedways. Daytona was a really fun race. Atlanta was one of the best races in NASCAR history. Talladega's Talladega. You are looking at something really special with this
I tell you what, the one thing, two things I should say, that are that is hurting NASCAR currently is the short tracks and the road courses.
Yes.
I mean, I honestly can live with the Daytona and Talladega fuel saving. I mean, I know that some fans call that gimmicky, but so was tandem racing 10, 15 years ago. And that even produced pretty good racing. So I can live with that. But they can figure out a way to fix these short track packages, fix the road courses, and make them as entertaining as the mile and a half. I can't even believe I'm saying that, because 10 years ago I'd been like, what in the world am I talking about? Because that was the thing 10, 15 years ago, was like, we need more short tracks, we need more road courses. Now it's bring back the mile and a half. So if they can fix those stuff, I tell you what, NASCAR would probably be the best condition it's been in a very long time.
You mentioned the tandem draft being kind of gimmicky. We broke the record for the closest finish today. Tied for the closest record was produced by Tandem Racing in 2011 with Jimmy Johnson. So, yeah, and I agree with what you said about fuel saving too. I mean, obviously, if you could cut it off at all costs, that'd be great, but that's not feasible. You got to something's going to have to give. But I'm fine with seeing two choo-choo trains side by side racing throughout the field, as opposed to the single file that we saw for years on a bunch of different tracks.
Years.
I can at least live with the visual aspect of seeing side by side racing.
And to kind of go off that, what if you're a casual fan, doesn't really know much about racing, but is kind of interesting in it, which is going to be more appealing? Is it going to be the single file train, or is it going to be the passing fuel saving? As a fan, I hate to say it, but you're not going to know any better. You're not going to know, and you're going to be like, wow, this is entertaining. So, kind of going off that, I love restricted plate racing, super speedway racing. I love that, but kind of like we were talking about earlier, short tracks, we got to fix them, and if we can fix them in road courses, I tell you what, man, we could be Formula One in the 18 to 40 demographic. I mean, truly, the sport is in the best place it's been in a long time, and if we can just fix them things, we got a really good product.
I've always been of the opinion that good racing will solve all issues, whether it's ratings, TV, prices, anything like that. If you put on, you're not going to put on a show like we saw today every week.
Yeah.
Let's be reasonable. But if you can continue to just give them great moments like that, man, I'm telling you, a lot of NASCAR's problems are going to be solved. I had a friend that was at the race, his second race ever. Last one he was at, he said he was like 7 years old. The first two races were caution free outside the stages, and he loved it. It was great racing. You don't need to see the calamity or anything like that. I mean, we did see that at the start of stage 3. He did like that. The Logano spun right in front of him, and he was pretty excited about that. He said that was pretty cool. But still, you don't need carnage or anything like that to put on good racing, even for someone that doesn't watch racing on a regular basis.
I tell you what, I was up in the press box for, I want to say, a good 200 laps of this race. And every once in a while, you're catching stuff, going on your phone, checking Twitter more often than actually watching the race. My eyes were glued to that racetrack all day today. Mm-hmm. I mean, the passing. I mean, how many times did we see the lead change today? How many times was Hamlin and Larson and Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, so many other drivers making threats to take the lead today? I mean, I could hardly use the bathroom because I was so focused on the racetrack. I could hardly go get a drink or anything. I was so focused on the racetrack because the product here at Kansas and majority of the mile and a halves are outstanding. I mean, it's truly, NASCAR has seriously struggled with this next gen guard at intermediates.
And one guy, obviously, we talked about him a little bit already. Chris Buescher. Ford has been dreadful this year. They haven't won in any of the 3 series. They finished second in all those close races we talked about. But Chris Buescher's never even finished in the top 5 here, and he led 50-something laps. And on the backstretch, on the final lap, I told you, I think he's got it. This race, I mean, the big dogs came out to play in a sense that there was no gimmicks, nothing. Hamlin had issues. He came back. Larson lost track position on that caution. He came back. Buescher had a penalty. He came back. Those were the 3 best guys. The best drivers showed up to the task today. It didn't matter what was thrown at them. And, we talk about Kansas being a driver's track. That really showed it because, like I said, there were so many different things that happened to so many different drivers, and the cream of the crop, the best drivers, left no doubt about it. Hamlin said he thought he was going to finish 20th after that pit road issue that he had, and without a caution, he probably wins that race.
I tell you what, I haven't looked at Twitter in a little bit, but I'm sure with all this positive, I'm sure there's some fans complaining about this, saying it's gimmicky. This finish wasn't really a true finish. But like you mentioned, there was no fluke drivers there. It was all guys that were contending to lead today and to win. So that's what makes this more special. It's not somebody that came from that was running 35th all day and then came up here because of fuel strategy. No, it was truly the top guys in this sport in this race today battling for the win. So that's what I'm going to remember most about tonight is the fact that there wasn't any fluke. It wasn't. This was true racing, and that that to me is just remarkable. I'm so happy we got so much momentum. And another thing I'm wondering, Chris Chris Buescher, does this build momentum going into Darlington, the All Star race, the Coke 600? RFK and all the Fords, they haven't had that win yet, but I feel like it's closer than ever, and they could eventually do it next week off this race.
Yeah, they needed something, and Keselowski had speed at certain points too. He was one of the fastest drivers on the track near the end of that run. And Buescher had a great run at Darlington last year. He ran top 5 in the Southern 500. Yeah, we've kind of been waiting for RFK to kind of step up a little bit. Obviously, Ford across the board has been kind of struggling outside of probably Ryan Blaney. All you need is one good race to just kind of put things back in perspective and kind of get you back on the right foot. So, yeah, I think this could definitely be a turning point for RFK racing. And back to your point about just not being gimmicky, it was a pure race. My favorite part about it, I think the most frustrated drivers were probably Hamlin and Truex because those were the guys that were going to decide the race had there not been a caution. My favorite thing I saw all night was after the race, we were in the press conference and I checked Twitter, and Chris Buescher tweeted to Denny Hamlin saying, "For as much crap as you get, you race me clean." He had no problem with how him and Hamlin were racing. That was a great battle too. Before before Buescher faded a little bit, trying to save fuel. Him and Larson were both laughing about the finish at the end, no matter how much they were beating and banging each other. That's what this next gen car can do. You can hit each other. You can be aggressive like that. You don't have to worry about cutting a tire or anything like that. 10 out of 10. I love when guys are able to race each other and there's no sour grapes between them afterwards. It was a good old fashioned boys, in a way, kind of boys have at it, but it was clean. And you can't feel like any driver was really wronged by another driver tonight. It was just good, hard racing.
Yeah, Larson even mentioned that in his post race conference not too long ago. He said he wanted to win, but if he finished second, he was having so much fun out there. I think he even mentioned that he gave the thumbs up to either Chastain or somebody, just for just running them hard but running them clean. It wasn't any dirty driving the night. It wasn't any foul play or anything. It was true racing. And if you're a motorsports fan and you don't appreciate that and you didn't love today, well, what are you even doing? I mean, this is truly one of the best races, probably in NASCAR history, despite the finish. And the finish only adds on to that. But yeah, clean racing throughout the day. There was one questionable move by Briscoe. I can't remember. I believe it was in the third stage early on, blocking Larson there on the backstretch, kind of pinned him. I can't remember who was in the lead at the time, but they were already way out, and this was for second or third, I believe. And then Briscoe was a lap down. I remember the TV booth saying something, I wouldn't have done that move, but other than that, you really didn't have any guys racing dirty today, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, even the moments like that, like I go back to Corey LaJoy collecting Jimmy Johnson in the wreck, taking out Austin Hill in the process. Johnson kind of gave him a dirty look as he drove by, but then in the interview afterwards, he said, I know we didn't mean to do it. Like, obviously, you're going to be mad that you got taken out in the car that you own, mind you. But, yeah, I mean, guys make mistakes. That's aggressive driving. No ill intent there. I'm sure they're going to be fine. Monday they might call it bad and everything like that. But, yeah, that's what I loved about this race. I want to change the subject a little bit, though, with you. We were both at the Tweet Up this morning. It was a great turnout, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Very good turnout.
Really good turnout. There was some pretty interesting discussion. Was there anything kind of talking with Bob, Jeff, Eric Estep, Brock Beard that kind of caught your eye or anything like that?
Mainly, I want to say the only thing that really caught my attention was the charter talk. We've had a lot of talk this week. Jordan saying the things he said, talking about we need to make these charters permanent. Stuart Haas, are they going to be a 4-car team next year? Bob says he'd be highly surprised if they're a 4-car team next year. A lot of this charter talk, with how much success NASCAR's having this year, all the great finishes and whatnot. It just seems like that dark cloud is looming bigger and bigger into the picture as the season goes on. You got NASCAR saying, "Oh, we're getting pretty close on the deal." You got drivers saying, not so fast. We're not that close yet." So that would be the only thing that really would worry me. In the tweet up today, they were talking about, well, could the, this is going really off on a tangent
No, you're
here,
good.
but could there be some sort of a split, kind of like what CART and IRL did back in the early '90s? And the thing you got to realize though is NASCAR owns majority of these tracks, and so does SMI, which is Speedway Motorsports. If you're a race team, why it's so hard. Where would you race that? And they were talking about Jeff Gluck mentioned this in the tweet up today. Drivers are in contracts with teams saying they have to race in they race in NASCAR events for that team.
Right.
Well, if it's not a NASCAR race, if they're like, hey, we're just going to go start our own thing, then drivers, if there's teams still in NASCAR, for example, Kyle Busch, to make this a little bit easier to understand, if for some reason Richard Childress like, all right, we're boycotting NASCAR, we're going to go run in this series, Kyle Busch can be like, I'm supposed to run a NASCAR for you. So if we're not running NASCAR, I can jump over to any team to go win a Daytona 500. That that was the main thing in the tweet up today that really caught my eye. I I'm still a fan of the sport. I love the sport. There are things I wish I could fix, and one of those is the charter negotiations. I wish the communication between NASCAR and the race teams were made a little bit more clear, and wish we can get this deal up because I want to see NASCAR in its full potential, and I would hate to see something like that. I don't really think there'll be anything like that, but the closer we go into the season in without a deal like that, the what ifs get bigger and bigger as the season goes on.
Yeah, for sure. And it might be optimistic of me to say this. I don't think it's going to get to that point because I think the worst possible thing for NASCAR is to take a race today. For example, Kansas is one of the best tracks, but it doesn't pay the most. It's not exactly a prestigious race.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, it's prestigious. I love this track. But if you have a split, if you have teams talking about not running every race, kind of like I think it was Hamlin that talked about it. That was a bombshell that he brought that up. Can you imagine that race today? But some of the top guys, you don't have like a Chase Elliott, you don't have a William Byron,
Right.
you don't have a Ryan Blaney at this race. You have maybe 25 guys, and some of those huge draws, some of those fan favorite drivers aren't showing up, and you have 30,000 fans coming to a race that was still that good. I don't think you can have that, and I think NASCAR knows that better than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one thing that's interesting about the charter discussion is I don't see any way that charters get moved, get sold until a deal is made.
Yeah.
So one team we kind of talked about a little bit that's really interesting to me is Stewart-Haas Racing, because I think the likely possibility is that they downsize. And my question also then, Front Row Motorsports is moving up a tier with their Ford support. Stewart-Haas, from what it seems like, doesn't have Ford support. So are they going to move? And if they do, Chase Briscoe's a Ford driver. He is, in my opinion, their top guy right now. There's a huge rebuild. Chase Briscoe's your guy. He's been there the longest. Right now, in my opinion, he's the best Cup driver of the four. What does that leave him with?
Yeah, I don't know.
I got one idea, one guess that comes to mind. The only seat that I can think of that might be free at the end of this year is going to be Wood Brothers.
But is true.
Is that a place that Briscoe's going to end up with? Is that just Stewart-Haas, whatever's going on with Stewart-Haas? There's so much question with them. Do they see a talent like Chase Briscoe, who's basically handpicked by Tony? He basically built this guy up from the ground up. They're in commercials together. Is that enough of a reason to stay with Ford, to stay in the sport, to keep a charter? Because let's be honest, Briscoe's not going to be the one that goes if they do sell a charter. I think his job's pretty safe. They have 3 guys right now at minimum that are going to be really hard to get rid of.
And 2 they just hired this past season.
Right.
So, you got Gregson, you got Priest, you got Barry. Which one do you pick out of that? And I'm going to be honest, through the first 12 races, my pick's Gregson. I mean,
Really?
I really do believe he's one of the only SHR. He was the only SHR car really today that was in contention today.
Yeah.
So what is that leaving? You just hired Barry. You just got Priest last year.
And you took a gamble on Gregson too. He got suspended from the sport, didn't really have much sponsorship.
Right.
You're taking a chance on a guy like that. And to be fair, it's worked spectacularly. Gregson's been fantastic this year.
Yes, and it just as a silly season gets on, it's gonna be amazing. My question is, does front row? This is totally hypothetical. Does front row maybe purchase a charter from Stewart Haas Racing and get one of them 4 drivers to keep them in a Ford Alliance?
I'll tell you this. One, do I think they should get a charter? Right now, no. I think you've got something promising right now. Michael McDowell's one of the more underrated drivers in the Cup Series. Todd Gilliland's really coming along. He's doing a really good job in that 38 car. I thought he got rushed, but he's done a really good job in 3 years. Build with them first. And then if you're starting to bear fruit, then take a look at that second charter, build up sponsorship, all that good stuff. But 2, I don't think they would win that auction if one came up for sale.
That is true.
There's talks about Legacy looking to expand. There's talks of 2311 looking to expand. They're always in the discussion. I think they've got more Cup-ready drivers right now. No one ever knows what's going to happen with Dale Jr. No one knows what's going to happen with Kaulig Racing and their partnership with Trackhouse, mainly with Shane Van Gisbergen. There's so many moving pieces going around right now. And I think if any 5 of those were looking to buy a charter, it would make more sense for them, and probably financially they could afford it better than Front Row Motorsports could at this time, because I think Front Row's only sold charters because they were a 3-car team for a while. Mm-hmm. They've had the 2 cars forever since they won 1-2 with David Reagan and David Gilliland. So I would stay right where I'm at with Front Row. I think they're exactly where they should be.
Yeah, Front Row has definitely surprised me this year. I was on the Front Stretch Happy Hour podcast, and we were talking about Michael McDowell, and I easily said, this guy could either win a road course at Super Speedway or both in the same year and be a championship contender with the way the playoffs are, with 2 Super Speedway races and 2 road courses. So I tell you what, Front Row has really upped their game in the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to see. I really agree with that. Now that you mentioned that, they really should focus on because they got a really good thing going on right now. Yes. And I would hate to jeopardize that with focusing on another car. Look at Kaulig, for example. They were running really, really hot and heavy there in the Xfinity Series. They move up to Cup. I know it's kind of a little different, but you put that more focus into Cup, one of them's got to give. And would hate to see Front Row be like that, but man, these charters are making my head spin. The silly season coming up, man. It's just too much for my noggin to handle, but it's going to be interesting for sure.
A lot of people said that, and there's reason to believe that the biggest loser with the Gen 6 car was probably Roush Racing or Roush Fenway back then, now RFK, because part of it was performance, part of it was circumstantial, because Matt Kenseth left in 2012, Carl Edwards left in 2014, Greg Biffle left in 2016, and the guys that they had, all credit to Trevor Bayne and Ricky Stenhouse, they just couldn't live up to that hype. On the flip side, I don't think any team's has benefited more from the Gen 7 car than Front Row Motorsports, because it really, they were building off a Daytona 500 win in 21. They'd had 3 kind of weird wins in the Gen 6 car, but you really got to see what you had in Michael McDowell. Yes, he'd had some top 5s at super speedways, won the Daytona 500 on a last lap crash. Yes, you knew he was a road course guy, won a Xfinity race with Richard Childress at, I think, Road America in 2016. But you really saw, he led 30-something laps at Worldwide Technology that first year on older tires. This guy, he's been around since 2008. No one really knew what to expect from him. They just kind of saw him as another journeyman. This guy's a wheel man.
Yes.
He's just getting better and better as time goes on, too.
Yeah, and he was actually in contention for that Stewart Haas ride for Eric Almirola when that was available. That obviously went to Gregson, but I tell you what, he has really stepped up his game with this next-gen car. Like you said, nobody has benefited more with this next-gen car than Front Row Motorsports. So great to see them with success. I know we caught up in that wreck on the backstretch there at Kansas, but I'm really excited to see what he can do at Darlington coming up. as well as the Coke 600 and all the races coming after that.
Yeah, I want to switch it a little bit. We were talking a little bit walking up to the tweet up about what the schedule is going to look like next year.
My favorite subject.
Yeah, we were talking about it a little bit because there's been talk about Fox potentially looking to get the IndyCar deal. What would that do with the Indy 500? Would Fox still try to have the Coke 600? Obviously, that race is going to move anywhere. That's going to stay on this at the same date. It's just kind of where it falls on the schedule numerically. Right. So I talked to my favorite source about that, Bob Pockris. I caught him a little bit at the tweet up, and I asked him if there's any plans, if there's any major changes planned to next year. And he said there's nothing really sweeping this year coming up, but he said the one change most likely, he said probably going to lose a date at Richmond, going to Mexico City.
Really?
That's caught my attention. Last year all the talk was about Montreal possibly getting a race. Mm-hmm. Now instead of going north of the border, we're going south of the border. Obviously, we went to Mexico City for, I think it was 4 years in the Xfinity Series. Put on a good show. It was a fun crowd. But, man, they might get a cup race. And also, kind of piggybacking off that, Mike Joy hinted at potentially racing at Bowman Gray Stadium next year. Did you see that?
I did see that, yes. That definitely caught my eye. Here's what I'm thinking with that news, and by the way, no pun intended. Well, I guess kind of pun intended. No way to break that Mexico City news on Cinco de Mayo. So
I didn't even plan that.
But no. So here's what I'm kind of thinking about it. What if you move the All-Star race to North Wilkes? Well, I don't know how that would work with SMI. So let me continue what I was saying. Move the All-Star race to North Wilkes, or the Bowman Gray. Make Bowman Gray North Wilkesboro a points-paying race, and add Mexico City in there to replace Richmond. I tell you what, that'd be a pretty interesting schedule for sure.
Who do you think North Wilkesboro would replace if it got added to the schedule as a thing?
That's the thing, because you think of SMI and all their tracks, and they've really conceded down today. I mean, New Hampshire, their date, they lost one of their dates. Texas has lost one of their dates.
I think the only ones they have that run two right now are Charlotte, which gives you two tracks. So as much as I want to see the Oval come back, that's not going away. And Atlanta. Which has so much momentum. In my opinion, the odd man out has to be Bristol, which sucks because Bristol put on such a great race in the spring. But I think it makes the most sense. It's a short track. It's in the area. It doesn't award the most for drivers. I mean, obviously, half capacity at Bristol is more than full capacity at a lot of tracks, but that's always going to be a concern. So I think Bristol would be the odd one out, which I hate to see. I want to have more short tracks if possible, but I mean, 36 tracks with SMI getting so many, NASCAR's tracks getting so many, it's just hard to manage.
Another possibility I was just thinking of there is, what about if the Clash actually went to Bowman Gray, but instead of running it at the season opener, is there any rule or contract that NASCAR has with Fox Sports with that event running in the early season in February? Because if not, what if you move that kind of sort of somewhere in the springtime where it's a little bit warmer in the Charlotte area? I mean, at the same time as I'm saying that, you have the All-Star event just right around the corner from that. So that very curious to what all that's going to entail. Bowman Gray could be a points race. As I'm saying, this could be a points race for all we know about. I've learned since 2020, since all the races have been were postponed that year, that never say never. Anything in the sport is possible. So there definitely a lot of things in the schedule that can happen. And one thing I would love to do with this sport, if for some reason we could ever get the season to end in middle to late October, we're already talking about how great this track is here at Kansas Speedway, and make this the championship race. Could you imagine if that finish was to determine a championship?
Cinematic. It'd be Hemrick winning his first race on steroids.
Oh, 100%. Hollywood wouldn't be able to script that any better. I mean, this track deserves a championship race. It really does. With what it's put on, I tell you what, man, that would, you talk about schedule changes in Mexico. If we didn't have all that, we just put Kansas championship race, I'd be the happiest person ever.
even if you can't, I mean, Larson was talking about you can't run Kansas in November because it's too cold or whatever. I get that, but say you swap the schedule out a little bit, move Phoenix to the round of 12 where Kansas is right now, and have a third round Kansas, Vegas, Martinsville, move the championship back to Homestead. How good would that racing be at the end of the year?
Oh my goodness, yes, that would be really good. One thing I would love to see, we're talking about the schedule and whatnot. If there was any way we could change the playoff format to, instead of being the final race, I know NASCAR wants to have that Game 7 moment where everything's on the line. But at the same time, if we can make the final round a 3-round chase to where it's, 3 tracks where you can include Phoenix, Homestead, and Martinsville, where it's all points finished there, that would, I tell you what, we've talked about, you know, Ryan Blaney, was he the best driver all year? No, he wasn't. Did he really deserve to win that championship? I believe he did under NASCAR's rule, but is that the way that we need to do that in the future? I think if we did that, we would have more of a legitimate championship. It would kind of go back to the days where, back when the chase first started, where points still mattered and average finishes still mattered, and it wasn't just all a Game 7 moment all the time.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I'm paradoxically, I'm not a fan of the championship format, but I also, you can't put an asterisk on any of them. It's fun to say, true. William Byron would have won the championship last year in a full season format. Yeah, but he didn't.
He did.
It's not like he didn't know it wasn't a full season format. So, you play by the rules given to you. Ryan Blaney, Cole Custer, and Ben Rhodes played him the best last year, and they're the deserving champions because of it. But one thing that I would like to see, and in a way you can keep the eliminations, you can keep the win you're in, but what if you kept the points that you earned in that round? Mm-hmm. Say, you keep your 16. I hated that rule at first because I hated the thought of a guy of, a Martin Truex Jr. scenario where he was like 5th in points in 22 and missed the playoffs because Austin Dillon was like 20th in points and happened to win at Daytona.
Yes.
I hate those scenarios, but we're 10 years into this. That's one in a blue moon. You know what I mean?
Right. No.
So I've kind of learned to live with it. Like I didn't like rooting for underdogs for a while because of that, just because it screwed up the format. But it is what it is. Like, it's not like they have much of an impact on the playoffs. Stenhouse and McDowell were cool to see them win, but they were out in the first round pretty handily. But what if you kept your points? Take the 16 drivers you had last year, okay? And if you win, you move on. You're immune. So if you have the fewest amount of points, you're still moving on. And the 4 or fewest that don't have a win that round are eliminated. Yeah, you have your playoff points. You start off with those. But what if, if Larson runs second 3 weeks in a row, that should count for something. I think consistency in the playoffs should matter as well as wins. So say he gets 45 points each week, second place, and then 10 stage points. That's, what's the mental math, 135 points? So just add 1,000 points to where, a guy that's eliminated is going to move up. But keep a running tally of those points. So when you get to Phoenix, not everyone's on an even playing field. Say you got a Ryan Blaney who had 2 wins the last 2 rounds, but is, 50-something points back. So the only way he can win the championship is to win.
Yep.
So he's running a different strategy. It'd be like Tony Stewart needing to win, but maybe Larson's got 15 points ahead of the other 2 guys. And he just needs to accumulate stage points and execute a good race. You'd still get differing strategies while still leading that Game 7 moment in the same way.
Yeah, no.
I think in some way that would kind of balance it out because, it wouldn't work out. It would work out where Blaney isn't the champion this year because Ross Chastain still won the race in my hypothetical scenario. But I think there's something there. I think it forces desperation while also bringing back some of that old school, make the most out of every week and just continue to accumulate points like we saw in the chase era with Jimmy Johnson. I think if you can find a way to get the best of both worlds there, you've got something.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Excuse me, as much as the Game 7 moment can be entertaining, NASCAR isn't like any other sports. It's not a stick and ball sport. It's not a basketball NFL. It's its own thing. And I believe consistency matters in this sport. I hate that it isn't that way in the championship. I hate that it's a win and you're the champion, even though you may not be the best driver. But I definitely do like that. Put the points forward. Have that still matter. I think that would be a very successful. But this is all stuff that we wish. I mean, it's not a bad product by any means. It's not anything that's too terrible, but it's something that we would definitely appreciate. It would make more sense in our opinion.
I mean, it's adapt or die. This is going to be the 8th year of the format being unchanged. The only change that they've made since 2014 is keeping your playoff points into every round,
Right.
which I think was a good step. Like it cost Jeff Gordon in 2014. Again, I'm not saying he should have won it. He knew the rules, but I mean, you could just see where it's flawed. I think it's a good package. Yes, it's gives you exciting moments, but Boston beat Toronto on an overtime Game 7 goal last night in their garden. It was awesome, but it was such a big deal because it was organic. It wasn't manufactured. They didn't go into that series knowing that they had to just preserve everything, just get to Game 7. They had to earn it. The Leafs had to earn it to even get to Game 7. The Bruins had to respond and win that game. It doesn't happen every series. It doesn't happen every year. It's organic. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second.
Oh no, you're good. And it's funny. I was just thinking about this the other day. Did you know that when Brian France first announced this playoff format, the 16 year in, this from 2014 to now is the same distance in time as it was when they first announced the original Chase format in 2000 in the 2003-2004 offseason to 2013.
Yeah,
it's hard to believe that this system is just about even older than the one before. And I do appreciate NASCAR for not changing it too much. That consistency does matter in the sport. Even though if we don't agree with it, it's still the same year in year out, except for the adding points, which is something they needed to do. And I really do appreciate from that. It's hard to build new fans when a point system is changing from year to year, like it was from 2007 to 2012 with the different 2013 adding Jeff Gordon in there
with the wild card. Yeah.
Yes, I appreciate NASCAR for staying consistent. Now, if we can get to where the points do matter a little bit and we carry them forward, I tell you what, we would have an amazing championship battle for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna real quick. I got a trivia question for you.
Perfect.
Let's see if you can get it. So last year, we've now had 10 playoffs with the win and you're in format, counting 2014. And out of those 10 champions, only one of them made the championship 4 in the year before their championship. Can you name that driver in that year?
Okay.
Should I get the Jeopardy music and post-production? And
yeah, that'd be awesome.
See how long it takes?
Okay, so you're saying the champion of the season, he was in the championship 4
Yeah,
before.
so like the champion for 23 was in the Final 4 in 22.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
If you can't tell, the answer's not Ryan Blaney.
Yeah.
For that, I wouldn't have given you that example.
Oh man, that's a good one. I'm trying to think.
That's kind of crazy that it's a 10% success rate.
Yeah, that's really surprising. I want to say Joey Logano for some reason, but I don't think he was the one in 21. Oh man, you stumped me here. Good job on this.
Thank you.
Kyle Busch.
Which year?
2019. He made it in 2018.
Bingo, you got it.
I got it.
You got it. Well done.
Thank you. I had to think about that, man. That was a good one.
That's a tough one. It's weird to think about because you think of the guys being the best year in and year out, but Logano is so weird where it's even year magic with him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's a San Francisco Giants.
And I was thinking, he won in 2018. He didn't even make the playoffs, I believe, in 2017.
Yeah,
I believe he was in 17.
He had a win at Richmond that was encumbered.
Yes.
So Matt Kenseth made it in as the last guy in because of that.
Gosh, I do not miss that word encumbered. You remember them days?
I like disqualified just rolls up the tongue a lot better.
Yes, it makes a lot more sense. But yeah, no, good job on the trivia question, man.
Why, thank you. But anyway, yeah, like we were saying, it's a good product, but I mean, we can't act like it's perfect. I think continuing to adapt on it and just making it better, giving the fans the best product possible is obviously that's the end goal in anything you're looking for, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're only doing constructive criticism. I mean, it's not like we're bashing the sport. We're just giving our honest thought to what we think could make it better. And who knows, we could be completely wrong, but no, yeah, like I said, I love the way this direction. I won't ever forget the late 2010s when there was so much. It just felt like there was so much negativity with the sport. After Junior left, Jeff Gordon left, and whatnot. It finally feels like the sport is going on an upswing. TV ratings coming up. We got guys like William Byron winning the biggest race of the year. We got close finishes at Atlanta and Kansas here. There is so much positive momentum building in the sport. I am so excited for what's left of the year.
All you got to do is really get a hold of it and make the most of it. And they're on a winning streak. We got a great month coming up. Darlington's going to be awesome. The Coke 600 has been one of the best races of the year the past 2 years. You got Worldwide Technology. You've got Iowa coming up pretty soon, an inaugural race in a new market that's been craving this race. We're looking at something really good here.
Yeah, and you skip over North Wilkesboro, even though the racing may not be at where it needs to be. We're racing in North freaking Wilkesboro in 2024.
They hadn't raced there since 4 years before I was born.
Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous. It's awesome. I would have never imagined that. There's so much possibility with the sport now. I mean, possibility going Bowman Gray, Rockingham trying to make a start back, Mexico City. It just seemed like year in, year out back in 2010s, it was copy paste with the schedule. Maybe a few, Texas got moved up a week. Ooh, big deal. But now we're adding new racetracks every year, and I'm so excited with the sport, and I seriously cannot wait for the future of it. It's going to be amazing.
It's always good to talk about NASCAR in a positive light and have it be justified. We're on a great run. Atlanta was huge. Kansas tonight could be huge. Market that. I mean, I saw John Boy Media talking about it. ESPN, get on it. Get Pat McAfee on it. Have Kyle Larson come on and talk about it. Talk about that finish. Talk about beating Bingham with Chris Buescher. Talk about running in the Indy 500.
Oh, man.
Dude, we're on the right track. We got to sell our stars. We've got stars. We just got to show the rest of the world that we've got them.
Yes, and there was a lot of talk, today with the Miami Grand Prix and all that. Not bashing on Formula One, but this is true racing. This is what racing is. How much positive momentum NASCAR has built. I hate to say it, but that F1 bubble is going to pop here pretty quick. With all that's going on there, I believe that's just a fad. But I feel like what NASCAR has is true. Are we selling out hundreds of thousands of seats like we did 20 years ago? No. But do we need to? No, I don't believe so to be a successful sport. I feel like the direction we're heading to, getting on the Pat McAfee show, being a topic in a positive light where drivers not getting suspended or anything like that. Just a positive light on the sport, and I feel like we can go a long ways with it. We're in a really healthy spot in NASCAR right now, and I'm very proud to be a part of it.
The racing product, Jesus, the racing product is sustainable right now, and I'm gonna say it again. You give people good racing, you put on a good product, the rest will take care of itself.
Yes, and I guarantee you, there was a first-time fan today that thought, I'll go out to the Kansas race. Was a little bit disappointed at first with the weather.
Hope they stuck it out.
I hope they stuck it out. I'm pretty sure, hopefully they did, and they saw a great racing product, and they're going to be like, I'm coming back next year. And not only that, they're going to be interested in going to Gateway, going to Iowa, going to all these other different tracks.
Going to Kansas again in the fall.
Yes, exactly. There's so much. I cannot say this enough. NASCAR's in a very healthy spot right now. I'll see on Facebook and on Twitter, NASCAR's dead. NASCAR died when Dale did. No, it didn't. NASCAR is very alive and well. It's in a very healthy spot than it has been in a very long time. And I am very, very glad of where it's at now. And like I said before, I'm just glad I can be a little small part of it and be talking about it.
Yeah, I love being in a small part of this. I'm really thankful for the opportunity with the podium finish to get to cover these races and talk to some of the drivers, be there and feel like I'm making even a little bit of an impact to the sport that's meant so much to me.
Yes.
Man, I want to keep it up. I want the sport to keep it up. Man, we got something here.
We got something here. Like I said, thank you to Speedway Dodgers for allowing me to come over here. I've been coming here. I remember my first race here was in 2009 for the Xfinity race. I remember Joe Logano winning that race. And sometimes I just got to pinch myself. Like I was literally a fan of that stands just a couple of years ago, and to be here and covering the sport, it's such an amazing journey. I love it. I would love to go to more races, but Man, we're in a pretty good spot right now.
Absolutely. I think that's a good point to call it. We're gonna end on one more thing. Obviously, Darlington next week. We got the throwback weekend. I want to know so far what's been your favorite throwback unveiled, and who's going to win the Goodyear 400.
Kyle Larson's got to have the best scheme. The fans have been asking that for a while. I didn't know if anybody could top it with him in the Kyle Petty scheme. I believe in 2015, which was probably the first race run or not.
It was the first.
Yeah, 500 real. So Larson's got the best scheme so far. How can you not go with Larson or Hamlin? Larson won there in the fall and the Southern 500. I got to go Larson or Hamlin. They're the two. And kind of going off topic a little bit, that rivalry, I tell you what, has got to be one of the best in NASCAR. You got someone like Kyle Larson who grew up sprint car racing, is probably the best driver in North America right now.
Oh, yeah.
And you got Hamlin, who's been in the sport for a very long time, has seen the sport change. Them two veteran guys duking it out there year after year here and all over tracks. That's got to be one of the best. That's going to be a rivalry 30, 40 years from now. That's going to be our David Pearson and Richard Petty. But yeah, I got to go with Larson. That momentum's going to be building up. It's not technically a 1.5 mile track, but it is an intermediate track, and so far they've shown me that they can be pretty strong there.
Yeah, it's funny to me. You mentioned the differences in Larson and Hamlin's upbringing. It's almost surprising to me that they're friends, but they're really good friends off the track, and they race each other really hard. For the most part, pretty clean. And yeah, it's definitely, I think it's the best rivalry we got going on in NASCAR, because it's not vitriol. It's not, one guy being wrong like Chastain.
It's not a Kyle Busch or Brad Keselowski.
Right.
These guys
like
respect,
each other.
Yes.
Yeah. So you don't get a lot of those. So it's good to have an organic one like that. Yeah, I think Hendrick went 4 for 4 with their throwbacks. Every single one of them is spectacular. This water bottle is empty. I think my favorite, if it's not Larson, is probably Chase Elliott. I mean, I wasn't even a Dale Jr. fan, but that 2014 Daytona 500 win, It just felt so right to see him win that race. So I've always loved that paint scheme. I think it's maybe the best National Guard scheme ever run. I think they hit a home run with that. Yep. Every detail with that looks so good. The number leaning forward. I know that's sacrilege to switch the angle of the number sometimes, but I think they did a really good job. And before the year, I tried to predict the winner of all 36 races. I think I'm like 3 for 12 or something like that, which I'm actually pretty proud of.
Not bad.
I almost went 5 for 12. I swapped Hamlin at Phoenix and Bell at Bristol. If you swap those two, I'd be batting pretty well. So I'd be up on the rooftop bragging to people about that. I think I had Chase Elliott winning that, and I had him breaking the streak. Obviously, he did that at Texas. I'm not gonna stick with Elliott. I think he'll run just fine, but I think it's gonna be the guy. Probably the second best car at the Southern 500 last year. Jeff Gluck asked him in the media center, said, what's the toughest track? He said Darlington. He's one of the most talented drivers out here. I'm going to take Tyler Reddick to win it.
That's a good pick.
I think Reddick's due for a monster season. Before the season, I had him winning 5 races this year, making the championship 4. Man, I think 23-11's right there. He's the guy to do it. Man, I think this is as good a time as ever for Reddick to really start. He's won a Talladega now. He's won at the Indy Road Course, but man, win some of these really big races. Win a Darlington, win a Coke 600, win a Brickyard 400, the Southern 500. Start winning those big races. I think it's time we see some fresh blood getting these crown jewels. It was cool to see William Byron get the Daytona 500, for example.
Yeah, that's a really good pick. I really didn't think about him, but yeah, he was running really good at the Southern 500, and who knows? We could be completely wrong. It could be somebody else. But yeah, I feel confident about Larson and Reddick could obviously do that too. It's going to be I'm very excited to go to Darlington. One of my favorite racetracks. I would love to go there one day, but going to be very excited to see it on TV next Sunday.
Yeah, definitely a bucket list race for me. So I'll be sure to check it out and try to get a recap up on the page as well. So Kaleb, man, it's been a pleasure. Had fun having you on. Had fun hanging out this weekend. So when's your next race?
I believe my next race is going to be Iowa. I'm going to be down there Friday through Sunday there. Was really looking forward to going to Gateway. Unfortunately, have some things come up there, but yeah, guys, catch me up at Iowa. And man, Tell you what, thank you for having me on, man.
Yeah.
We've been buds for, gosh, it's been 2 years now.
5 races, 5
yeah,
race weekends.
Yeah, it's been a cool little journey. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me on, man. Talk a little bit about racing, and best of luck to you, and hopefully get to see you come out more races other than Kansas.
Yeah.
But very very excited.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully, we'll get to make it some more contact. Maybe we'll bring the Show Me NASCAR podcast back in some capacity here coming up soon. But yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch. We'll keep talking about the races and everything like that. My next one will be Worldwide Technology Raceway in a couple weeks, so I'll keep you guys up to date on that. But that's Kaleb Vestal with Speedway Digest. My name's Harry Loomis with the Podium Finish. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys at a track in the near future.